The roar of the crowd, the tension at the starting blocks, and the split second between the gun and the dash. The world of sprinting is defined by speed, power, and a relentless drive for glory. But in the dark corners of that pursuit, some athletes fall victim to the allure of shortcuts. In a sport where every hundredth of a second counts, elite sprinters often face a brutal choice: compete clean or do whatever it takes to win. The pressure to stay on top can lead down a dangerous path. This is the story of those who chose that path. A story of shattered dreams, stripped titles, and the scandals that shook the very foundations of the sport we love. Today, we will tell the stories of 5 sprinters who fell victim to the temptation, athletes who reached the pinnacle of their sport, only to have it all come crashing down. Get ready, as we're about to take a deep dive into the greatest doping scandals in the history of sprinting. In the 80s, the world of sprinting was an arena of legends. Records were broken, boundaries pushed, and one man was about to shake the world of athletics to its core. His name was Ben Johnson, a sprinter from Canada who went from humble beginnings to becoming one of the fastest men on the planet. But his meteoric rise would soon lead to one of the most infamous moments in sports history. Ben Johnson was born on December 30th, 1961, in Falmouth, Jamaica. As a young boy, he moved to Canada with his family, where he began his journey in athletics. Standing out for his raw speed, Johnson quickly made a name for himself on the track. By the early 80s, Johnson's talent was undeniable. Coached by the renowned Charlie Francis, he developed a powerful, explosive style that left his competitors in the dust. With hard work, discipline, and laser-like focus, he climbed the ranks of international sprinting. In 1984, Johnson earned a bronze medal in the 100 meters at the Los Angeles Olympics, but this was just the beginning. Johnson's big break came in 1987 at the World Championships in Rome. In a stunning performance, he set a new world record of 9.83 seconds in the 100 meters, beating his fiercest rival, Carl Lewis. Johnson had not only won gold, but he had become the fastest human alive. For a moment, he was on top of the world. Then came the 1988 Seoul Olympics, the event that would forever change Johnson's life. The showdown between Johnson and Lewis was the most anticipated race of the Games. The rivalry between the two had intensified, as both athletes sought to prove they were the greatest sprinter of their era. On September 24, 1988, the most infamous race in the history of sprinting began. In front of a global audience, Johnson exploded out of the blocks, leaving Lewis and the rest of the field behind. He crossed the finish line in a staggering 9.79 seconds, a new world record. The stadium erupted in cheers. For a brief moment, Johnson was a national hero. He had secured his place in history, but that glory would be short-lived. Just 72 hours after his victory, the shocking news broke. Johnson had tested positive for the anabolic steroid stanozolol. The world was in disbelief. The International Olympic Committee acted swiftly, stripping Johnson of his gold medal and disqualifying his world record time. The sprinter who had captured the world's admiration had now become its biggest villain. The backlash was immediate and unforgiving. Johnson, once celebrated as a champion, was now the face of a scandal that exposed the dark side of competitive athletics. He returned to Canada in disgrace, and his career, once filled with promise, was in tatters. But the scandal didn't end there. As the dust settled, the deeper layers of the doping culture in athletics began to unravel. Johnson admitted to using steroids as early as 1981, claiming that many of his competitors were also doping, a claim that would reverberate throughout the sport. It was later discovered that 6 of the 8 sprinters in the 100 meters final in Seoul had tested positive for doping, including Carl Lewis, Dennis Mitchell, and Linford Christie. In the aftermath, Johnson would fight to rebuild his reputation, but the damage was done. A lifetime ban followed in 1993 after another positive test, marking the end of his professional sprinting career. Ben Johnson's downfall became a turning point in the world of athletics, forcing officials to confront the widespread use of performance-enhancing drugs. His story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder of how quickly success can be stripped away when the pursuit of greatness crosses into deceit. Today, his name remains synonymous with the doping era in sports, a man whose talent and ambition were overshadowed by scandals. Ben Johnson's rise and fall is more than just a story about one athlete's mistake. It is a reflection of an entire era, a moment in history when the lines between heroism and cheating blurred, and the cost of winning became greater than the victory itself. To help you understand the story behind the upcoming sprinters, it's crucial to first explore and explain one of the most notorious doping scandals in sports history. The Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative, better known as BALCO, was a small nutritional supplement company in Burlingame, California. Founded by Victor Conte in the 80s, BALCO initially operated as a legitimate business providing athletes with supplements aimed at improving performance. But by the late 90s, it had become the epicenter of one of the largest doping operations in sports history. At the heart of the BALCO scandal was a sophisticated doping program designed to give athletes a competitive edge while avoiding detection by anti-doping authorities. Victor Conte, along with a team of chemists and doctors, developed steroid called tetrahydrogestrinone, or THG, also known as the Clear. THG was engineered to be undetectable by standard drug tests at the time, allowing athletes to use the drug without fear of being caught. In an era when anti-doping controls were becoming more advanced, BALCO found ways to stay one step ahead. For years, the system worked. But in 2002, a breakthrough in the fight against doping occurred when an anonymous source sent a syringe containing a sample of THG to the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency. It was a critical turning point in the investigation. For the first time, authorities had access to a substance they hadn't been able to detect in drug tests. With this new information, the walls began to close in on BALCO. What followed was a wide-reaching investigation led by federal authorities. Search warrants were issued, labs were raided, and records were seized. The depth and scale of the operation became clear. It was a systemic abuse of performance-enhancing drugs across multiple sports, facilitated by one of the most sophisticated doping networks ever uncovered. Records were wiped, medals were stripped, and careers were left in tatters. The scandal changed the landscape of track and field, exposing the lengths to which some athletes were willing to go in order to win. It revealed a culture of doping that went far beyond rogue individuals. This was organized, institutionalized cheating, facilitated by scientists and coaches who were as much a part of the performance equation as the athletes themselves. The BALCO scandal had left a scar on the sport of track and field that would take years to heal. In the late 90s and early 2000s, few athletes captivated the world like Marion Jones. Her grace, speed, and determination made her a global superstar. She wasn't just a sprinter. She was the face of women's athletics. But beneath the surface of her dazzling career lay a secret that would unravel everything she had achieved. Born on October 12, 1975, in Los Angeles, California, Marion Jones showed promise as an athlete from an early age. As a teenager, her speed on the track began to draw attention. By the time she attended the University of North Carolina, it was clear that Jones had the potential to be one of the most outstanding athletes in the sport. In the late 90s, Marion Jones set her sights on the world stage. At the 1997 World Championships, she won the 100 meters, signaling the arrival of a new sprinting star. But it was the 2000 Sydney Olympics that initially cemented her status as a legend. Jones made history by winning 3 gold medals in the 100 meters, 200 meters, and 4x400-meter relay, and taking 2 bronze medals in the long jump and 4x100-meter relay. Her 5-medal haul was unprecedented. Marion Jones was on top of the world, hailed as the greatest female athlete of her time. But as she stood on the podium, the seeds of scandal were already being sown. In the early 2000s, whispers began to circulate around the sport of track and field. Allegations of doping were becoming more frequent, and Marion Jones found herself linked to the BALCO investigation. At first, Jones vehemently denied any involvement. She maintained her innocence publicly, insisting she had never used steroids. But behind closed doors, the walls were closing in. The truth finally came crashing down in 2007, when Jones stood before a federal court and admitted what many had suspected for years. Jones confessed to taking THC during the lead-up to the Sydney Olympics. For years, she had lied to the public, to her fans, and to federal investigators. Her admission of guilt was devastating, not only for her, but for the sport itself. The International Olympic Committee acted quickly, stripping Jones of all 5 of her Olympic medals. The woman who had once been the pride of the track was now at the center of one of the biggest scandals in athletic history. But the consequences didn't end with the loss of her medals. In addition to her doping confession, Jones had also lied to federal investigators during the BALCO investigation. This perjury led to her being sentenced to 6 months in prison in 2008, making her one of the most high-profile athletes to serve time for her role in a doping scandal. The image of Jones, once draped in Olympic gold, now being led away in handcuffs, was a powerful and tragic symbol of her fall from grace. Her case became a watershed moment in the fight against doping, leading to stricter regulations and heightened scrutiny of athletes at the highest levels. Jones has since worked to rebuild her life, speaking publicly about the mistakes she made and encouraging others to avoid the same path. But the shadow of her doping scandal remains. The Golden Girl of Sydney had become a cautionary tale. Her story a reminder that even the brightest stars can fall. Marion Jones's legacy is one of talent and triumph, but also deception and betrayal. The image of her sprinting across the finish line, once the pinnacle of athletic achievement, is forever tainted by the knowledge of what lay beneath the surface. Marion Jones was more than just an athlete. She was a symbol of hope, strength, and excellence. But her story, like many others, reminds us that even the most extraordinary achievements can be undone by a single lie. Her rise and fall stand as a testament to the price of cheating in the relentless pursuit of success. Tim Montgomery was born on January 28, 1975, in Gaffney, South Carolina. It wasn't long before the young sprinter realized that his true gift lay in his legs. In the mid-90s, Montgomery made his presence felt on the international stage. He was part of the U.S. 4x100-meter relay team that won silver at the 1996 Atlanta Olympics, participating in the heats and the semifinal. By 2001, Tim Montgomery had established himself as one of the fastest men in the world, consistently competing against the sport's elite. But it was in 2002 that he would make history. Montgomery ran 9.78 seconds in the 100 meters, breaking the world record held by Maurice Green. The sprinting world was in awe, but behind the glory, shadows lurked. Montgomery's rise to the top wasn't simply a product of natural talent and hard work. Beneath the surface, a darker chapter of his life was unfolding, one that would not only tarnish his career but forever change how the world viewed him. In the early 2000s, rumors of doping scandals in athletics were spreading like wildfire. Tim Montgomery's name soon surfaced in connection with BALCO, a link that would unravel everything he had worked for. In 2005, Montgomery was implicated by the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency in what would become one of the most infamous doping scandals in track and field history. The revelations were shocking, but not entirely unexpected. Montgomery's performances had been under scrutiny for some time, with whispers circulating about how he had managed to suddenly dominate the field so consistently. The sprinter, who was dating Marion Jones at the time, initially denied all accusations, proclaiming his innocence to the media and his fans. But as the evidence mounted, it became clear that this was no mere rumor. In a desperate attempt to hold on to his career, Montgomery fought the accusations. But in 2005, after a lengthy investigation, the IAAF stripped him of his world record and imposed a 2-year ban from the sport. The man who had once stood at the pinnacle of sprinting was now disgraced, his achievements tainted by the stain of cheating. For Montgomery, the ban wasn't just the end of his athletic career, it was the beginning of a downward spiral. The loss of income, endorsements, and reputation took a toll on the sprinter, pushing him into a series of poor decisions. In 2007, he was sentenced to 46 months in prison for his involvement in a check fraud scheme. The following year, he was involved in another crime and sentenced to 5 years in prison for drug trafficking. The man who had once raced against the clock, who had defied gravity with every powerful stride, was now a shadow of his former self. Montgomery's story is about the pressure of greatness, the temptation of the easy way out, and the price athletes pay when they choose to cheat. From world record holder to convicted felon, Montgomery's journey is a stark reminder that, in the pursuit of glory, the line between victory and dishonor can be dangerously thin. Today, Tim Montgomery's name no longer stands atop the record books. His 9.78 seconds erased, his accolades revoked. But his legacy endures. Not as a hero of the track, but as a symbol of how far one can fall when they run dirty. Born on April 5, 1978, in London, Dwain Anthony Chambers grew up in Finsbury Park. As a teenager, his raw speed caught the attention of scouts, and soon he was rising through the ranks of Britain's track and field scene. His potential was undeniable, and by the time he was in his late teens, he was already a name to watch in the world of sprinting. Chambers' early career was a promising one. He won gold at the 1995 European Junior Championships and quickly cemented his status as one of Europe's top sprinters. In the late 90s, he was seen as Britain's answer to the dominance of American sprinters. With a powerful physique, explosive starts, and a fierce determination to win, Chambers looked like the future of British sprinting. In 1999, at just 21 years old, Chambers stormed onto the global stage, finishing third at the World Championships in Seville in the 100 meters. The next year, he secured gold at the European Championships in the 4x100 meter relay, solidifying his position as one of the top sprinters in the world. The early 2000s brought even more promise. Chambers was regularly running under 10 seconds in the 100 meters. In 2001, he set the second fastest 100 meters time in Europe, clocking 9.97 seconds, becoming the third Briton to break the 10-second barrier in that event. By 2002, Chambers was a force to be reckoned with on the track, a rising global star. But behind the scenes, like many of his competitors, he was facing a world of temptation. As his performances peaked, the demands on him intensified. It was then that he made the decision that would change his life forever. In 2003, the revelations about Dwain Chambers' involvement in the BALCO doping scandal would send shockwaves through the sporting world. While BALCO had cast a wide net, capturing athletes across multiple sports, the exposure of Chambers as one of its clients struck a particularly devastating blow to British athletics. Here was an athlete who had represented his country at the highest level, breaking records and inspiring a generation of young athletes, only to have it all tainted by cheating. The dream he had built, the career he had fought for, was now crumbling before his eyes. The admission of guilt was swift. Chambers, knowing the evidence against him was overwhelming, confessed to using the banned substance. The repercussions were severe. He was handed a 2-year ban from athletics. His results from June 2002 onwards were invalidated, including his European Championship gold medals. He was stripped of his titles, records, and sponsorships and cast into sporting exile. The British Olympic Association went a step further, imposing a lifetime ban on him from competing in future Olympic Games. For most athletes, this would have been the end of the story. But not for Chambers. During his ban, he tried his hand at different sports, even dabbling in American football. But the shadow of his doping scandal loomed large, and his forays into other arenas were short-lived. By the time his ban ended in 2006, Chambers was determined to return to sprinting. But his comeback was fraught with obstacles. He faced legal battles over his Olympic ban, and there were many within the sport who believed that he didn't deserve a second chance. Still, Chambers fought on. In 2008, despite his Olympic ban, he won silver at the World Indoor Championships in the 60 meters, proving he still had the speed to compete with the best. But the road to full redemption remained elusive. Chambers was never able to fully escape the stigma of his past. He had it all: the speed, the strength, and the talent to be one of the greatest sprinters in history. But the choices he made in secret cost him everything. The bright light of his early promise forever dimmed by the choices he made in pursuit of victory. And though he may have run fast, the shadow of his decisions will follow him for the rest of his life. In the world of sprinting, the fastest men on Earth often walk a tightrope between glory and disgrace. Justin Gatlin was one of those men. A sprinter with the rare ability to come back from defeat and a career defined by resilience, Gatlin's journey was marked by triumph, scandal, and an unrelenting determination to prove his worth on the track. Born on February 10, 1982, in Brooklyn, New York, Justin Gatlin's athletic talents were clear from an early age. His rise was meteoric. In 2000, he earned a scholarship to the University of Tennessee, where he dominated collegiate competitions. By the time he was 19, he had already won multiple NCAA titles. His powerful stride, technical efficiency, and ability to surge in the final meters made him a standout. In 2003, he decided to turn professional, and the world soon took notice. In 2004, Gatlin's career hit a high point when he burst onto the global scene at the Athens Olympics. There, in a stunning display of speed and determination, he captured the gold medal in the 100 meters, clocking 9.85 seconds. He also added a bronze in the 200 meters and silver in the 4x100 meter relay, securing his place among the sprinting elite. At just 22 years old, Justin Gatlin was at the top of the world. Gatlin's dominance continued, and in 2005, he achieved what every sprinter dreams of: winning world championships. His winning margin of 0.17 seconds was the widest in World Championship 100 meters history. The following year, he equaled the world record of 9.77 seconds, affirming his status as one of the fastest men to ever compete. The future seemed boundless for Gatlin, but it was in that same year that the cracks in his career began to show. In 2006, Justin Gatlin's world came crashing down. The U.S. Anti-Doping Agency announced that he had tested positive for testosterone or its precursors, a banned substance. Gatlin, the Olympic champion and world record holder, was suddenly thrust into the center of a doping scandal that would define the next chapter of his career. The revelation sent shockwaves through the athletic world. Gatlin initially denied any wrongdoing, claiming that he had never knowingly taken performance-enhancing drugs. His coach at the time, Trevor Graham, the man who sent the sample of THG to the U.S. Anti-Doping Agency, pointed to sabotage. Graham, who had already been linked to other doping scandals, only deepened suspicions surrounding Gatlin's camp. The stakes were high for Gatlin, not only because of his status, but also because this was not his first doping offense. With 2 infractions on his record, the authorities took swift action. In 2006, Gatlin was handed an 8-year ban from athletics, effectively ending his career. The sprinter who had once stood on the highest podium in the world now faced the harsh reality of exile from the sport he loved. But Justin Gatlin wasn't ready to give up. In 2007, Gatlin's ban was reduced to 4 years after he cooperated with the investigation into doping practices in track and field. This gave him a sliver of hope, an opportunity to return to the sport. Yet the path to redemption would not be easy. The years in exile were grueling. Gatlin missed the Beijing Olympics in 2008, watching from the sidelines as Usain Bolt rewrote the record books. The world had moved on without him. But Gatlin's resolve never wavered. Despite the public's doubt and the damage to his reputation, he set his sights on a comeback. When Gatlin returned to competition in 2010, he was met with a mix of skepticism and disdain. But Gatlin, now in his late 20s, was determined to prove that he could compete clean, that he could still be one of the fastest men in the world. Over the next few years, Gatlin worked his way back into the sprinting elite. In 2014, he achieved a new personal record when he ran the 100 meters in 9.74 seconds, becoming the 5th fastest man in history. In 2017, at the World Championships in London, Gatlin finally achieved what had eluded him for years. He defeated Usain Bolt in the 100 meters final, winning gold in what was Bolt's last major race before retirement. The moment should have been the pinnacle of Gatlin's career, but it was met with boos from the crowd, a strong reminder that forgiveness in the world of sport doesn't come easily. For Gatlin, the 2017 victory was a bittersweet one. He had returned to the top, but the legacy of his career remained divided. To some, he was a champion who had defied the odds and overcome his past. To others, he was a symbol of the dark side of athletics, a reminder of the sport's struggle with doping and dishonesty. Justin Gatlin's story is one of both triumph and tragedy. A world-class athlete who reached the pinnacle of his sport, only to be brought low by scandals. His comeback was extraordinary, but his legacy remains complicated. A sprinter who ran not just against the clock, but against his own past. In the end, Justin Gatlin will always be remembered as one of the fastest men in history, but the shadow of doping will forever run beside him. As we look back on the stories of sprinting's greatest scandals, we are reminded of the complex relationship between talent, ambition, and the drive for glory. These athletes, once at the pinnacle of their sport, found themselves ensnared in a web of temptation that promised faster times, world records, and Olympic gold. But the cost was far greater than any victory. The sprinting world has come a long way since those dark times, with stricter regulations and a renewed focus on clean competition. Yet the question remains: can we ever truly restore trust in a sport where the line between natural talent and artificial enhancement was so often blurred? What's important to remember is that these doping scandals are not isolated to one country or one group of athletes. While the stories of American athletes like Marion Jones and Tim Montgomery have been heavily covered, doping has been a global issue. From Eastern Europe to Asia and across Africa, athletes from all corners of the world have fallen victim to the same pressures and temptations. Many of these stories remain untold, often overlooked or underreported by the media. As the pursuit of speed continues, the athletes of tomorrow will face the same temptations. The real question is, will the future of sprinting be defined by those who run clean, or by those willing to cross the line to win? Let me know your opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep chasing greatness.